The author Stephen E. Robinson wrote in the 1990s a wonderful two-book series with the titles Believing Christ and Following Christ. In the second book, he shares the following, what he calls Parable of the Divers, that I want to read to us. He said, "Many years ago, when I was somewhere between 9 and 11, I participated in a community summer recreation program in the town where I grew up. I remember, in particular, a diving competition for the different age groups held at the community swimming pool. Some of the wealthier kids in our area had their own pools with diving boards, and they were pretty good amateur divers. But there was one kid my age from the less affluent part of town who didn't have his own pool. What he had was raw courage. While the rest of us did our crisp little swan dives, back dives, and jackknives, being ever so careful to arch our backs and point our toes, this young man attempted backflips, 1.5s, doubles, and so on. But oh, he was sloppy. He seldom kept his feet together, he never pointed his toes, and he usually missed his vertical entry. The rest of us observed with smug satisfaction as the judges held up their scorecards that he consistently got lower marks than we did with our safe and simple dives, and we congratulated ourselves that we were actually the better divers. He's all heart and no finesse, we told ourselves. After all, we keep our feet together and point our toes." The announcement of the winners was a great shock to us, for the brave young lad with the flips had apparently beaten us all. However, I had kept rough track of the scores in my head, and I knew, with the arrogance of limited information, that the math didn't add up. I had consistently outscored the boy with the flips, and so, certain that an injustice was being perpetrated, I stormed the scorer's table and demanded an explanation. "Degree of difficulty," the scorer replied matter-of-factly as he looked me in the eye. "Sure, you had better form, but he did harder dives. When you factor in the degree of difficulty, he beat you hands down, kid." Until that moment, I hadn't known that some divers were awarded extra credit because of their greater difficulty. That parable is a great application to our lives. Of course, we have absolutely no way of knowing the degree of difficulty that each other is going through. We only know our own experience. And in reality, even then, I would say, don't have a great perspective on how difficult or not difficult our life really is. To some extent, well, in reality, we all feel our lives are difficult and have hard parts of them. But the story makes it obvious that without knowing the degree of difficulty, which none of us can, we have no ability to judge or compare or determine the relative worth of any individual. And of course, anytime that we compare ourselves to other humans or consider in any way the relative worth or value of a fellow child of God, we engage in reality in serious sin. We're rejecting the opportunities for growth that our Father has placed before us in exchange for a brief, momentary personal gain. I think this is true even if, in the comparison, we're the ones who come up on the short end. It is still pride, and it still distracts us from being able to love and care for each other in ways that a Zion people do. The reality is we're all distant from becoming like God. I really appreciate reminding myself regularly of a story that Elder Renlund told in conference several years ago about a missionary who was quite frustrated with his companion about a variety of things, and one day while they were out biking to an appointment, looked back and saw that his companion was far behind him and became frustrated again with just another problem that his companion he thought was causing him. But as he did so, he heard the Spirit whispering to him something to the effect of, "You know, Elder, in comparison to me, there's really not that much difference between the two of you." And again, that's not a perfect quote from Elder Renlund's story, but it again makes the case that and identifies the truth that in comparison to God, there really is minimal difference between any of us. We're all in the same place, all in the same um, at the same level of progression, more or less. And so it just doesn't make sense to try to compare across ourselves. First, we don't understand the level of difficulty between each of us. We have no ability to judge that. And we're all really in the same boat and we need each other. So, my action that I want us to all try to take based off these ideas is I want to encourage each of us to purposely try to notice another person in a difficult circumstance this week and reach out to them to support them with love.